Hello guys, welcome to another video of mine. I'm AceTrainerJosh, and I'll be bringing you my GPC draft. And I don't know what season this is. I'm actually not gonna lie. It's pretty. It might be season 5, season 4. I'm not very sure. But yeah, I was awarded the opportunity to take part in the GPC after my quarterfinal result in the GPC 20. So that was pretty exciting. And what else? Anyways, this will obviously be my GPC draft analysis, and I felt like my draft was pretty solid compared to my IACL one. It does have some sort of a weakness, which I'll go over afterwards, but besides that, I feel like it's pretty good. Anyways, each team was allowed a minimum of 8 Pokemon, maximum of 12, and we were each given 100 points to spend on a team. So yeah, that's pretty much the basics. We go by Smogon Claws, but that is a detail I'll go over later on in the season. So anyways, let's go on to my first pick. Well, let me tell you guys right now, I had a wheel pick, but not the best wheel pick. I was the very last one to draft, so I didn't get my hands on the Pokemon I wanted, like Jirachi, because I've been wanting to use Jirachi for so long that it's crazy. And obviously I couldn't get that, so anything else was going to be fine, but I just really wanted Jirachi because I've always wanted Jirachi. Because I had it in the RBA when it lasted like a week, so, you know, we'll see. But yeah, my first Pokemon is also a base 100s, and it's known to be a pretty good sweeper in the OU meta game, and it can, you know, do much more besides that because of the base 100s. And that Pokemon is Manaphy. Alright, Manaphy being, you know, base 100 stats across the board, being pure water, meaning I'm one of the best defensive typings in the game, but that's just my opinion. But because pure water is just very, very bulky naturally, like Suicune, and yeah, just as any other bulky pure water. I mean Blastoise. Yeah, Blastoise. There you go. Blastoise is pretty good on its own, and then the Mega with the offensive presence and the defensive presence is just amazing. And pure water in general is just great. And Manaphy is able to do many, many things, and I felt like drafting Manaphy because it's a Pokemon I've learned from experience that can easily be built around because of its potential as a Pokemon. It's kind of like drafting Jirachi, except Jirachi I feel like it's just better because of that steel typing. But, you know, pure water is pretty good as well, and it has, you know, access to Tail Glow, access to U-Turn, pretty good amount of moves with, you know, Psychic, Energy Ball, Scald, Surf, Ice Beam. Basically, it gets coverage for almost any Pokemon in the entire game, except for, you know, Fairy types. It doesn't really get a poison move, but besides that, it gets about, well, actually, no, and Steel types too. HP Fire is your best bet, but besides that, it gets a good amount of coverage for almost any type in the game. And even if you don't have a good move to hit super effectively on those typings, once you're +3, it's just game over most of the time. So, yeah, I felt like that was just a good reason for picking Manaphy. I felt like Manaphy was just a strong start to my draft, and I wouldn't really have to worry about not having a good start because this Pokemon is just really good to build around. Anyways, my second Pokemon, I decided for it to be my Mega, and that came to the question, which Mega do I want it to be? Because, as like I said, this was a wheel pick, so I had the luxury of being able to pick a Mega and a normal Pokemon, and what my normal Pokemon, of course, was Manaphy. Sorry, I had to pause that really quick. My mom was looking for me. Anyways, going on to what I was saying. My second pick, I decided for it to be my Mega, and I was looking around at the Megas, seeing which one looked pretty good. And I tried out this Pokemon once, and that was in the March Madness tournament, and it didn't really work too well for me. But now I feel like I have the experience to try to use it better. So this time, my Mega Pokemon is going to be M-Scizor. So M-Scizor, of course, being really good for its natural bulk and its base 150 attack. And base 150 attack. Can't talk. Uninvested is absolutely crazy, and then base 75 speed is pretty workable. Like, you outspeed base 70s, like Bisharp and Volcanion, which is definitely pretty good. And, you know, with base 140 defense and 60 and 100 special defense, you can eat 4 times super effective hits rather easily. And by 4 times super effective hits, I mean non-stab Fire Blast and Hidden Power Fires. So that's definitely pretty interesting. And of course, you got the coverage to Bullet Punch, which is Technician boosted, and then you got access to U-Turn and Bug Bite, Sword Dance, the Fog, Roost, Roost to, you know, keep your Pokemon as healthy as possible. And something I didn't mention on Manaphy, I have the option of Rain Dance Rest, meaning I do have a pretty reliable form of recovery, quote unquote. It does require me using half my move slot, but it is a way of easily recovering my Manaphy up to full. So that's something to mention. But yeah, Roost, I'm able to have constant recovery on his Pokemon if it comes down to it. And what else? What else is there to mention? It also gives me the opportunity to start a Dragon Steel Fairy Core, and that was kind of my option. That was kind of what I was thinking I should probably do. I was thinking, okay, my best option is definitely just drafting a Steel type, and what better Steel type is there than M-Scizor? As Blunder once said, if there's a M-Scizor in the field, there's always a chance. So, you know, I felt like M-Scizor was that chance in my season that I felt like could easily pull through my team. Anyways, my third Pokemon, I decided for it to be another Pokemon that can contribute to my Dragon Steel Fairy Core, and that Fairy type is known for causing a lot of shenanigans, and by shenanigans I mean flinch. So, in other words, my Fairy type is my Togekiss. I don't know why I said my Togekiss, but yeah, I just meant like I drafted Togekiss. But yeah, anyways, Togekiss being pretty cool, you know, pretty good base defenses. You have 80 base speed. Put yourself in the 80 base 80 speed tier, which isn't too bad, but it's also not too good. It's a pretty good tier for Scarfers like Togekiss, especially when you have, you know, the great Air Slash. It's pretty good, and then not to mention this thing has access to the beautiful move Thunder Wave, meaning I basically shut down my opponents if I get a Thunder Wave off plus Air Slash. And then another thing is that this Pokemon also has Roost, and it also has the Fog, so getting very similar moves to M-Scizor, as they can both function as my Defog users, and that is definitely really great. And you know, also being a Fairy type, it doesn't get the best Fairy move in the world. Its best Fairy move is Dazzling Gleam, but having a Fairy type in general as a defensive Pokemon is just great on its own, to the point where you don't even need the Stab as an offensive threat. You just need Air Slash and the typing with Roost, Thunder Wave, the Fog, Heal Bell, and you're just good to go. Honestly, it really just is a good Pokemon to have as something that can threaten you defensively and offensively, and that's something I really like. And so far with this team, with the base 100 defense, base 100 stats, and then the 140-100 defenses, and then Togekiss with like base 95 defense and base 115 special defense, that's definitely a really good bulky little core I have going. And that was basically my opinion, and then my reasoning for drafting these three Pokemon. Not to mention, two of these Pokemon get U-turn with Manaphy and Scizor. So yeah, so far I have two ways of getting rid of hazards, all three ways of getting my health back up. If you want to count Manaphy as one, I count Manaphy as one, so three. But to the real opinion, to the real way of recovery, it's about two. And all three of them have great offensive presence and defensive presence, so that's definitely really good. Anyways, my next Pokemon, I felt like, since I have two Pokemon in my Dragon Steel Fairy Core, I felt like I should start adding to my Water, Fire, Grass Core. So I decided to look for pure Fire types that are still available, because I like pure Fire better than dual type Fires, unless Heatran is still available, but I already had Scizor, so I felt like Heatran as a Steel type was unnecessary. So my next Pokemon, as you'll see, is definitely a pretty cool Pokemon. It could be also used as a defensive and offensive Pokemon, which is great, because I have great diversity on my team so far, and that Pokemon is Arcanine. Arcanine being great for multiple different reasons, one being because it gets Intimidate, Flash Fire, and Justified, all three abilities being really, they can all be used, basically. But of course Intimidate's a more popular one, but Flash Fire can be used to shut down offensive fire types like Typhlosion, which I don't know if it got picked or not. I doubt it did. But, you know, Pokemon like Typhlosion, maybe a Chandelure, but yeah, Shandy isn't the best. Arcanine's not the best counter to Shandy. But anyways, like Intimidate makes me a great defensive wall. Even when there's Stealth Rock in the field, you can easily switch this in on a lot of offensive threats, and you can still eat 2 hits and go for a Morning Sun without dying even after Stealth Rock. And I would know, I've used this thing before, and it's absolutely fantastic. With Will-O-Wisp, Morning Sun, Flare Blitz, Close Combat, Wild Charge. For water types, you want to run it. Then, of course, with that base 110 attack, you can run offensive with like a Band or a Life Orb, and even base 100 special attack with HP Grass, Fire Blast, and I guess you can other hidden powers, stuff like that. And with good base defenses of 80 on both sides, you can run as both like a mixed wall, full special wall, full physical wall, or even just a full special wall of Intimidate. It basically makes you a mixed wall, but you know what I mean. So yeah, Arcanine definitely pretty interesting, and with 2 Pokemon being able to defog, it's definitely has a good amount of support in my opinion. Even though none of those Pokemon at defog fit my Fire Water Grass quarter, it can definitely support it with turns later on in the game. Anyways, that's my 4th Pokemon. That was my 4th pick, and now my 5th pick. I saw this Pokemon was still available, and I was like, okay, this Pokemon needs to be in my hands because it's still available and it's the 5th round, so I probably need to pick it up. And it's actually the last piece of my Dragon Steel Fairy Core, and that Pokemon is actually Latias. Now, as you guys can see, this is my 3rd Defogger on my team, and spoilers, I don't draft any other form of hazard removal on my team after this, so basically, I don't have a Rapid Spinner, meaning if I ever get rid of hazards, I lose them. And that was definitely a problem I had in the IACL because one of my spinners got sniped. But in this case, I just didn't really look for spinners. I could have drafted Blastoise, but I had Manaphy, and the only other good spinner was Hitmontop. I believe that was taken, and I just felt like it was unnecessary. Then at this point, I found out, man, I don't have any points left. So what do I do? So I'm like, okay, I basically can't spend more than like 7 points of Pokemon, and that was definitely really bad. But after Latias, that is, but because all my Pokemon starting from my first round were 18 points and 15 points, and that is definitely really bad. And that eats up your whole budgets. But Latias is good. It gives me a Pokemon to drop Dracos. It gives me the Psychic typing that I didn't have yet. And with M-Scizor as a knockoff switching, it isn't that weak to knockoff, and Togekiss as a knockoff switching, and even Arcanine as a knockoff switching if it comes down to it with Justified. Latias is pretty good, and this Pokemon doesn't necessarily die to pursue most of the time unless it's a Bisharp, and I don't think Bisharp got taken, so I never have to worry about Bisharp on the field, and that's definitely good, especially since I have an Intimidate Arcanine. So basically, that's great. And anyways, like another Pokemon with Recovery, with Roost, and even Healing Wish, so I can support Manaphy potentially, and that is definitely really good. Or if my Scizor is ever burned and I don't have Heal Bell on my Togekiss, I can Healing Wish that up too. So basically, my Pokemon fulfill a lot of things, and Latias being able to support one of the best examples of being a defensive and a offensive Pokemon on its own, and that's definitely great. So Latias and M-Scizor and Togekiss, that's one core done. I need to finish my Fire Water Grass core, but I felt like it was unnecessary to pick this Pokemon for my 6th pick because I felt like it was going to be around for the 7th pick. So I decided to go with something that can be a wall most of the time. And I noticed I needed a ground type, and at first I wanted Piloswine, and then I realized I am so broke that I can't afford it. So I decided to go with the next best thing, and I decided to go with Pile of Shit. So basically, Pile of Shit, aka Piloswine. I like calling it Pile of Shit because that's what Hayden calls it, but yeah, Piloswine. Base 100 HP with base 60 special defense and base 80 defense. And when you add in a Eviolite with base 100 HP, meaning your HP stat at level 100 goes to 404, and with 60 special defense and 80 defense, your defenses are all of a sudden sky high, and it's absolutely crazy. And Piloswine with base 100 attack is nothing to sneeze at. Like, if you're taking a stab Earthquake from this thing, you are going to take a good amount of damage, especially if you don't resist. And that is definitely fantastic. In my opinion, that's just absolutely amazing. So, yeah, Piloswine. It's pretty good as a physical wall mainly, but it's also, in my opinion, one of the best electric type walls in the entire game. Basically meaning because the electric types that do get Grass Knot, this Piloswine doesn't weigh too much. And actually, I think it weighs like over 100 pounds, but it still doesn't take too much from Grass Knot. And if your only grass move is Hidden Power Grass, you're not doing a lot to this thing. Then, of course, it's immune to Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, any electric move in existence, in other words. And it's basically a great wall to electric types. And I felt like I needed that because I didn't have a ground type yet. And what better ground type to wall electric types than Piloswine, who, that one of the best electric type walls in the game. I've said that multiple times because I'm running out of I'm running out of stuff to say. I apologize. But yeah, Piloswine, it's definitely really good. I definitely can see myself bringing this thing to multiple games because it's just so good. With, you know, priority stab Ice Shard, I forgot to mention. This is also one of my first Pokemon that actually doesn't have recovery, and it's the 6th round, so I find that I give myself a win for that. Also, I forgot to mention Arcanine get to Morning. No, I didn't mention Morning Sun. I'm pretty sure. Anyways, that's basically Piloswine. Oh, and it also gives me my first Stealth Rocker. I didn't have a Stealth Rocker at first, and that was something I needed, a Stealth Rock. So I was like, what better pick than Piloswine? Piloswine is definitely really good at that. So yeah, that's basically Piloswine in a nutshell, and I felt like that was a pretty good pick on my part. Anyways, for my 7th round pick, I decided to pick up my Grass type. I noticed I didn't have a Fighting type, and there was that Grass typing I needed as well, and it was available, so I was like, you know what, I'll pick this Pokemon, and I'm sure you guys know what I'm saying. That Pokemon is Virizion. Virizion, of course, being one of the 4 Pokemon in the Swords of Justice, every single one of those 4 being fantastic at what they do. And Virizion, I guess you can call it the most underwhelming one in the group, because, you know, not just because it's an RU, but as a typing, it's just not the best. But in this case, I felt like Virizion was pretty good because it gave me a pretty good special wall. And not to mention, a good offensive stats with base 90 on both sides, and offensive, it gets set up on both sides with Combine and Swords Dance, and even Workup. So that's even better. And it gets pretty good special moves with Energy Ball, Leaf Blade, Focus Blast, Close Combat. It gets you can run, you know, sub SD. That's a pretty common set, and RU. So that's definitely pretty cool. So the ICL Championship's about to start. That's pretty cool. I'm probably gonna watch that pretty soon. My draft analysis is almost done to begin with. Anyways, its stats are pretty good. Its lowest base stat is 72 on the defensive side, and looking at my team, I'm not too worried about defensive Pokemon in the defensive stat, ironically. So that's definitely pretty good. And then base 129 special defense makes it a pretty good wall to Pokemon that, like water types, that can come in and resist its hits, aka, like an example, Suicune. I can easily switch in on a Suicune. Even an Ice Beam won't do too much because of that base 129 special defense, and they're always, you know, uninvested most of the time. So I can easily switch in, you know, with a nice stab Leaf Blade, or go for SD on it if I want, and it would be pretty nice. So yeah, that's basically Virizion, and I believe that is pretty cool to have, because I have a Fighting type which I didn't have before, and I also have a Grass type which I didn't have before. So, you know, I'm not repeating any typing so far, and that is definitely my goal in my drafts, because I don't want repeated typings, because I just feel like I become a little predictable, and it kind of just ruins my draft in my opinion. So anyways, on to my 8th round pick. I needed an Electric type, fast Electric type. I just said, I was talking to my friends. I was like, that's basically what I need. I don't want to wait till my 9th round, because it might not be available at that time, because this Pokemon is necessarily picked up at this point of the draft, and I'm like, okay, I should probably pick this up now. And as my friend Lou once said, any team can use this Pokemon because it's just so good at what it does, and that Pokemon is normal Manectric. I forgot to pause this, and I don't know the last thing I said, but I believe I was going over Manectric. Manectric has base 105 stats on, you know, its speed and special attack, meaning it's a pretty decent special attacker. Getting access to Overheat, Volt Switch, Thunderbolt, of course. You can run Discharge if you wanted to, and then, you know, HP Grass. And then I like the Fire coverage because it avoids you from having to run HP Ice for Grass types, and I definitely like that a lot. And besides that, its other stats are pretty underwhelming on base 60 defenses on both sides, base 70 HP, and base 75 attack, basically being pretty pitiful. Like, I'll probably never use it, especially at the base attack, because it's pretty, there's no reason to not run a physical move on this thing, for the most part. But I wanted Manectric for the reason of having an electric immunity, which I already had, but it's good to have two, because why not? The only Pokemon I could potentially Volt Switch on me is Moldbreaker, Mega Ampharos, but besides that, I wall pretty much every other special attacker that is an electric type. Well, not wall it, but I stop their electric attacks. And, you know, being able to attack with my base 105 special attacks, stab Volt Switches, stab Thunderbolts will do a lot of damage to anything that doesn't resist. and that was basically what I felt like I needed on my team. Something that can do that. And of course many Pokemon can do that, you know. Good examples include Heliolisk, Raichu, Mega Manectric, and Jolteon is one of the greatest examples, of course. And you know, we can even include Zebstrika, Raikou, did I just say Raikou? Raikou. What am I saying? Raikou, and then you say, you know, Zapdos, Pokemon like that. And I felt like Manectric would be that pretty good value pick for an electric type that I needed. So at this point, I had 2 points left, and I'm like, okay, time to see what Pokemon I can pick for 2 points I can possibly fit on my team. And I saw that I didn't have this type yet, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to shout out to Sean, who he used this in the UU League that we had, and it did pretty good for him. And this Pokemon having a massive attack stat, massive defense stat, pretty good HP stat, pretty good special defense stat. Its only pitiful stat is really its speed, and I felt like I should draft it because why not? I felt like it was pretty cool to have. It gave me another Stealth Rocker, gave me a Stab Rocker, gave me a Stab Rock type, and it gave me, what am I saying? It gave me a Rock type, and it gave me the option to have like Stab Stone Edge, and that Pokemon is Gigalith. Now, apparently, I don't know how to talk because I've been misspeaking this entire time, and I don't know why. Anyways, Gigalith, you know, being one of the coolest Pokemon in Gen 5, that is a Rock type in my opinion. Of course, being the first Pokemon to ever introduce Sturdy as a pretty viable typing, of course, because in the early game, those Rock and Rollers are pretty annoying, am I right? Tell me I'm not the only one that remembers that. Anyways, Gigalith, you know, massive attack set of base 135. If I can ever, I don't really think I can, Latias doesn't get Chirkum, I don't think, but, you know, but 135 attack, meaning if I can ever get a free attack off on this thing, I do massive damage to that Pokemon. And this Pokemon also gets a combination of Edgequake, which is definitely a pretty good combination in today's meta. And, you know, base 130 defense makes you a pretty good wall to almost any flying type in the game, because there's not a lot of special flying types. I guess the only examples include Torn and Mega Pidgeot, but even with base 80 special defense, if you run max HP, max special defense, you're a pretty good wall at that point. So this Pokemon I just wanted because it's a pretty good wall to birds, and I don't think anybody drafted Talonflame, but if I check the roster, let me see, did anybody draft the bird? Please don't tell. I mean, this is a pretty good wall to Salamence, I guess, but it gets Hydro Pump, so I don't know. I kind of lied about that. Did anybody draft the bird? Did nobody draft the bird? Please don't tell me I'm the only one that. Okay, Mandibuzz. I guess it was Mandibuzz because, you know, Foul Play won't do too much, I guess. And I have a pretty good, decent check to Cure Black because it can never kill me. Actually, it can, but even Earth Power won't kill me, even through Terravolt. So, that's great. Okay, someone did draft the stupid Smogon Cancer Bird. So, yeah, there you go. I have my check to Cancer Bird, and that's great. And after that basically rounds up my draft. I drafted 9 Pokemon. One over the minimum that I needed, so you can call it bad, you can call it good, you can call me predictable if you want, but I feel like my draft was pretty decent. Of course, lacking a spinner, meaning I always rely on Defog on one of my 3 Defoggers if I ever want hazard removal. Of course, my only Pokemon being weak to hazards is one of my fire types, but, you know, that's definitely kind of unfortunate, but, you know, I can kind of, I might be able to pressure Stealth Rockers of Manaphy, and, you know, stuff like that. Air slash Togekiss, you never know. So basically, that basically rounds up my GPC draft. I feel like I would do pretty decent, and my week 1 opponent is actually, let me find his name. I kind of forget what it is sometimes. The Richmond Rayquazas, and he actually drafted a 10-mon squad, so he's outnumbering me by 1 Pokemon, but that doesn't really intimidate me. Let's face it. And yeah, his team consists of Scolipede, Landers, T, Slowking, Megaladios, Cobalion, Mandibuzz, Blaziken, Aromatisse, Ariados, and Cryogonal. Of course, that guy has one of the Swords of Justice as well, being Cobalion. And we might be able to see which Swords of Justice does better, which one's the best. In a 1v1 situation, though, let's face it, it'd be Virizion that would win. Anyways, yes, I'm definitely pretty excited for the GPC. I can't wait to see what happens. And by the way, sorry about the black border. I can't really control that. I was trying to fix it on my Bandicam settings, but apparently I cannot fix it, and I'll try to fix it later on in my recordings. But yeah, that basically rounds up my draft analysis. If I had to rate this, it was probably like a 5 out of 10, but you know, I tried my best. I'm basically just showing off me and me as a person, and I felt like I did. And yeah, thanks. Shout out to Beige. I saw his design. I was like, hey, I like the spotlight. I like the little platforms on the side. I'm like, you know what? I'll use your idea. And to prove that I'm not copying your idea, I'm shouting you out. So there you go. You can't tell me I'm copying you now. So yeah, I'm AceTrainerJosh, and I'll be seeing you on my next recordings, whichever one they may be. Whether it may be my SummerSlam battles or my what's it called? My week 1 GPC match. So yeah. I'll be seeing you next time. I'll be seeing you later. So yeah, au revoir and peace.